Good morning, children. Today we shall be doing the Sermon at Benaras, Unit 10. Okay. Before I begin with the chapter, I have to remind you two things. First and foremost, be very regular in marking your presence, children. The attendance part should be in continuation. Whichever video you watch, as soon as you watch it, mark presence in it. Okay. And second thing, yesterday I gave you some project works to be done. In the first project, I understand it's a factual project. You would be finding out certain things from the net, and then accordingly you'll be doing those projects. They are factual projects, but that really doesn't mean that you would borrow one another's project and then do it. Okay, the expressions should vary, the value points should vary. When I say 3 folk songs, when I say 2 patriotic songs, okay, it should not be that all 20 to 30 of you are writing on the same song. There should be variation in the project. I should not find it copied from one another. Okay, there should be variation in your expressions even. Okay, and the second project, you know very well, you have to write it on your own analytical basis. Fine. Okay, now let's begin with the chapter for today. Our chapter today is the Sermon at Benaras. Open your books. It's on page number 133. Fine. The Sermon at Benaras. What is a sermon? Sermon is basically a religious preaching, a talk on the ethical values, okay, and it may be delivered to a number of people. And here the chapter talks about the sermon by Gautam Buddha, which was there at Benaras. Okay, here basically it tells that how it all began, how Gautam Buddha, a prince of northern India, how he transformed from a simple prince to a man who had been delivering preachings in so many states of India, and basically what all things he had taught each and every human being. What message did he give to the humanity as a whole? Okay, now other than all these things, see the third point of the before you read activity. Have you ever heard of Sermon on the Mount? Okay, before we begin with the chapter, just as a informative thing to you, Sermon on the Mount was basically a collection of the moral teachings of Lord Jesus Christ. See, when we talk about any of the religion, maximum of the religions give the same value input to every human being. Here also, in this Sermon at the Mount by Lord Jesus Christ, he emphasized on the purity of heart. He even said that being angry is a sin, and any sin, whatever it may be, is a punishable offense. Okay, so here he says that we shouldn't be angry. Here we talked about the Sermon of the Mount, Sermon on the Mount by Jesus Christ, and the chapter is about Lord Gautam Buddha's sermon at Benaras. Okay, let's begin with the text now. Gautam Buddha, 563 BC to 483 BC. That was the term or the tenure wherein he had preached us, wherein he had delivered us all those religious lectures or the preachings. He began his life as a prince named Siddharth Gautam. He was initially, okay, we started calling him Gautam Buddha later. When he was born as a prince, and his actual name was then Siddharth Gautam. In northern India, at the age of 12, he was sent away for schooling in the Hindu sacred scriptures. Then the schooling even was about the study of the Hindu scriptures. Scriptures are the religious books or the holy books, because they encompassed all the values which are actually required for a human being to survive. Okay, so then the studies even were based on those things only. So he, at the age of 12, he was sent for schooling in Hindu holy books, religious books. 4 years later, that is at the age of 16, he returned home and he got married to a princess. They had a son and lived for 10 years as befitted royalty. Befitted royalty means he led a luxurious life, a princely life, a life of royalty in his kingdom, in his palace. At about the age of 25, till then he was very well, safely kept as a prince who was leading a life of luxuries and royalty. At the age of 25, the prince, heretofore means like up till now, before this point, who was shielded from the sufferings of the world because he was living in a palace. In the palace, kept as a prince, he was kept protected from all these sufferings. He didn't know actually what the world is about. Okay, so while out hunting, he chanced upon a sick man. Once when he was taken for hunting outside that palace, outside his kingly estate, he got to see a sick man, then an aged man, then a funeral procession, and finally a monk begging for alms. Okay, you need to underline all these points. What all things did he see when he chanced to go for a hunting? Okay, I repeat, a sick man, keep underlining, aged man, funeral procession, and a monk begging for alms. All these four things revealed to him the sufferings which are there in the world, the sufferings which he had never encountered when he was in his palace. These sights so moved him that he at once went out into the world to seek enlightenment. He got so disturbed at these sights that he decided that he would leave his kingdom and he would try to find out enlightenment. Enlightenment basically means he had an eagerness for attaining spiritual knowledge. So he set out of his kingdom because he was very much concerned about the sorrows which he had witnessed, the sorrows and the sufferings, suffering of the aged man, sufferings of death, sufferings of poverty, all those things. So he wanted to seek enlightenment now. He wandered for 7 years and finally he sat down under a peepal tree. And under that tree, he vowed to stay until enlightenment came. He promised to himself that he wouldn't move away from there. He would keep on sitting there. He would keep on waiting for enlightenment. Enlightened after 7 days. He roamed around for 7 years at a stretch. See at the previous page, what is it given? He wandered for 7 years and then he sat down under a tree. And when he sat down under that tree, within 7 days, he was enlightened. He renamed that peepal tree the Bodhi tree. That tree since then is called as the Bodhi tree. Bodhi tree, that is the tree of wisdom. And he began to teach and to share his new understandings. After that enlightenment, what all had he understood about the sorrow and the sufferings of this world? he finally decided that he would share his understandings to everyone. Okay. At that point, he became known as the Buddha. Up till now, he was known as Siddharth Gautam. And that moment onwards, when he got enlightened, he came to be known as Gautam Buddha, the awakened or the enlightened. The Buddha preached the first sermon at the city of Benaras. So his very first sermon which he delivered after that enlightenment, it was at Benaras. Most holy of the dipping places on the river Ganges. You all may have heard of the name of this place, Benaras, a place which is on the banks of river Ganga. So it is most holy of the dipping places on the river Ganges, which is river Ganga, which is considered to be the most sacred river of the Hindus. That sermon had been preserved and is given here in the chapter. The very short part, an extract out of that is given here in the chapter. And this sermon reflects Gautam Buddha's wisdom about one inscrutable kind of suffering. All the other sufferings can be understood, but there is one suffering which we call it as death. This is one such suffering which never anyone has been able to understand that what exactly death is all about. What happens to the soul after death? All those things. Why does a person die? Why is there a mortality? Why do we lose someone whom we love so dearly? And can that pain be ever overcome? So this is all about that only. Okay. So now we begin with the sermon which he had given. Okay. Let's begin with that. Kisa Gotami had an only son, a lady blessed with one child, a boy, and her son died. In her grief after the death of her son, she was in pain. In her grief, she carried the dead child to all her neighbors. With that child in her arms, she went from place to place, from one neighbor to another neighbor, asking them for medicine. Poor mother, after losing her son, she is asking for a medicine which could make her son lively again, bring back life into her dead son. And when she asked for the medicine, people said she has lost her senses. See, when I'm talking about this, perhaps you also may be wondering that what kind of a lady she had been. She's expecting a medicine for a dead person, for a dead child. So the same way the neighbors also thought of her. What did they say? She had lost her senses. The boy is dead. They started calling her a mad woman. Never ever be able to think that heart of a mother was not ready to give up so easily. She still wanted that there should be some hope out of which she could make her dead son alive once again. At length, Kissa Gotami met a man. At length means while she was wandering from one place to another. She got to meet a man who replied to her request and said, I cannot give thee is you. I cannot give you medicine for your child, thy is your. I cannot give you medicine for your child, but I know a physician who can give you that medicine. And the girl said, "Pray, tell me, sir, who is it?" Now she was so very eager to get to know the name of that physician who could make her son alive once again. So she wishes to know who is that physician. And the man replied, "Go to Sakyamuni, the Buddha." He replied that she should go to Sakyamuni. Sakyamuni was a nickname or another name for Lord Buddha. So this way, one of the neighbor advised her to go and meet Gautam Buddha. Kissa Gotami repaired to the Buddha. Okay, repaired here basically means she visited. She went to Gautam Buddha and cried, "Lord and Master, give me the medicine that will cure my boy." She directly went to Gautam Buddha and said, he was that physician who had been told that he could cure anyone, he could have an answer to anyone's sorrow or suffering or the query. So she went to him and said, "Give me the medicine that will cure my boy." Buddha answered, "I want a handful of mustard seeds." Mustard seeds, you'll know, no? Rye. Okay. So he says, "Go and get me sarson ke dane, mustard seeds." And when the girl in her joy promised to procure means bring it or get it, Buddha added, okay, one condition he gave. The mustard seed must be taken from a house where no one has lost a child, husband, parent, or friend. Okay, so this is the condition which Gautam Buddha gives to Kissa Gotami and says, "I can make your child lively again, but on the condition, procure, get some mustard seeds, but those mustard seeds should be brought from a house wherein no loved one ever may have died." Okay, so this was the condition, and with this condition set forth in her mind, Kissa Gotami proceeds. Okay, now the remaining part of the chapter along with the question answers of the chapter we'll continue in our next class. Okay.